Hey, I thought I'd make a video to show a technique I've been trying out that blends the new metallic paints with traditional non-metallic metal painting workflows. I think it creates pretty nice results, and it's a cool way to use these metallic paints that holds up under all kinds of angles and distances. Let's have a look. So, here's my boy Antios. And you can see here that I've already painted his gauntlet and this eagle feature with some non-metallic metal painting techniques, or NMM. What NMM is it's painting a metallic surface without metallic attributes, which is a name from the miniature painting community, but we'd probably just call it hand painting metals, or diffuse only metals in game art. And it's a technique that comes from older spec games or older games like World of Warcraft, where you didn't have shaders that could simulate metallic properties, and so you'd hand paint these highlights on the model surface. Now what I've done here on this gauntlet is we've got a dark base coat, which is quite saturated in this case, and then we've built up layers of highlight just using paints from our palette here. I've mixed this palette here from the base coat to a mid-tone to a highlight, and then I've washed it with some other colours from my palette just to bring a bit of saturation back. Now it doesn't move with the camera, the light doesn't shift with the light, so you can see it looks flat, but from the distance that we play at, it looks pretty nice. And this is an art style and an aesthetic into itself, so some people will just really like seeing these kind of hand-painted non-metallic metals. Okay, I've duplicated this paint job now, and we're going to go over this metallic portion of his gauntlet using the new metals. So I'll start with the same base coat I used before. In fact, I've got it here in my base coats. So let's bring our brush size up, and let's bring our opacity up, using the keyboard shortcuts to do this. And we'll just cover this. I'm also going to increase the hardness of my brush by using the shift square bracket keys. It's not really visible in the interface, but you can see the effect while you're painting pretty clearly. Okay, we filled this in with our base coat, and normally what we do is we'd pick a lighter colour and we would start just working our way up to a brighter highlight in the middle. Obviously we're not going to do that here, but not with the flat paints. We're going to use the metal paints that are now available. So I'm not worried about going to the edges. In fact, I'd rather that I didn't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this top surface with the what's this, bronze, and I'm just going to lightly go over. I'm using a tablet that's pen sensitivity, but you can always just drop the opacity, and that looks pretty nice. See what happens if I go in, full whack. Yeah, it gets a little bit brighter. So I can make it a bit brighter if I need to, but restraint is the name of the game here. You don't want something that's going to be blown out of proportion compared to the rest of the model. So if we pull out, this isn't glowing freakishly white or anything. This is quite nice. So that's a maybe 60–70% opacity coverage of a similar color to your base color. And we're going to build up the highlight again with this copper. Nice warm tones here, really nice. You can see that bloom really blowing out there. Typical NMM technique is to edge highlight the edges, so we're going to do that as well. Can be hard to see the difference between these two paints, because a quality of realistic metal materials is that the actual base color is very dark, usually across the board. Even gold, it's very dark, and it's the way that the metal reflects light is actually what we're painting here. So we can see we've got some edge highlighting, we've got highlight there, and we're going to finish it off with the bright gold. Wow! Okay, so let's lower our opacity there and apply this rather delicately. Hit that edge, around here again, hit that edge, and you may be thinking, great, this is all I need to know. I'm just going to paint NMM how I normally would using these metallic paints, and all good, right? But you can see that while everything kind of looks nice from one angle, when we zoom out without any lighting, this can look really dull. And then when it does hit the light, you can find that everything kind of blows out uniformly. So even the kind of dark bronze areas are kind of blasting out the same as the gold areas, and we're losing that definition. But not to worry, because we're gonna bring that back. So I'll just finish off by creating a nice blend of these paints. You know, I'm blending on the model using Alt to color pick. It's really a staple of painting nice blends here. What we're going to do now to bring it back into NMM territory is I'm going to select one of my flat metallic colors, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to start to cover up this metal material. And I'll go down to my darker base coat light color, bring that into the darker areas. It's low opacity here. And this is going to exaggerate that effect of it basically only highlighting where the highlights are and not reflecting so much light where we kind of want it dark. Down to our real warm base coat here. Going to fill this in. So what we're doing is we're paring back that metallic effect to exactly where we want the highlights. Kind of another problem with this is, see on my non-metallic metal there, it's quite a bright color uniformly, whereas without the light here, this is like very dark with a grungy yellow highlight. So for very bright yellow, I'm going to come back and I'm going to... that's a bit rough. And I'm just going to lower the opacity a lot. It's a big color change. I'll try and hit the edges of this gold highlight, bring back some color. In fact, I think we actually want something a lot more saturated. You see, while we're paring back the metallic angle, this is a good opportunity to keep it bright by introducing some more color. So we're still getting a lot of metallic shine here, we've still got a lot of metallic to work with on the model. But we're now getting a nice non-metallic blend. So I think I'm going to use the copper paints. These are brilliant for blending in non-metallics. Lovely warm copper. Base. Blend that in. I mean, we're going to use some of this on the edge highlighting. See how this looks. That's tasty. So here we've got a nice kind of non-metallic metal look with proper metallic shine. And if you are worried about this maybe looking too dull, it's a shame that the only way we can really brighten it up is to go over it with bright non-metallic paints. Like if I use a really bright paint here, it's quite a big, it's going up quite a bit of brightness. Something like Burning Cinder makes a really nice non-metallic highlight, but unfortunately will dull the metal effect. So I think very low opacity, we're going to use this very sparingly so as to it's a balance between brightening the colours we're using and not losing that metallic effect. So I might do that, kind of come back in with the copper a bit, come back in with the gold a bit. I think I've lost the contrast there. It's just a bit too uniform now. Yeah, I'll undo that. let's just stick with a bit more of a gold base in the center, just so we have some metal to play with, and then burning cinder as a highlight. Really hitting those edges. And conductor as our kind of saturated blending color. Blend that down, really nice. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I've gone back and forth with the non-metallic copper paints and our metalwork metallic paints just to hone in the blend. I'm using the non-metallic copper to keep the saturation and the brightness up in the sort of base coat layer, and the metallic paints which is washing in a little bit of copper if I ever lose too much of the metal shine in the midtones, and hitting gold right in the highlight point just to not lose that highlight. And I'm really happy with how this looks. We've got a really nice bright bloom in the center that naturally fades out to some warm copper gold tones, and we still see that as we move the camera around, but we never lose that contrast, that saturation, that nice non-metallic look. So I hope this was helpful. I'm definitely really excited to play with this technique elsewhere on the model and on future paint jobs, especially like on this gold trim on this robe. I think that could look really cool. Generally, I think with these metallic paints, the trick is to not give up on traditional non-metallic painting techniques and to think of them as a sort of base metallic paint that you're going to be blending in pigment in to get the color and saturation you want. So happy painting and good luck in your matches.